I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you. This isn't about you. I can't stay here any longer. Not now. I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council, and without you.
generations.
I have to sort this out on my own. Without the council. And without you. This isn't about you.
So yesterday, the Supreme Court reversed the landmark decision of Roe v. Wade, taking away a woman's fundamental reproductive rights and their right to control their body. I know this show isn't political, and we aren't an activist platform, but I just wanted to help in any way I can those affected by this decision. It is my stance, and the stance of Dyad and the Force, to stand in opposition of this Supreme Court ruling. This does not and should not reflect the opinions of its guests and those affiliated with them. So as you've seen beside the stream, we are fundraising for the National Network for Abortion Funds. So if you'd like to contribute, you can hit the donate button on the side of the stream or in the chat, and all super chats will also go towards that. There's also a GoFundMe that has been organized by the Star Wars community, raising money for the National Abortion Federation. That will be linked in the description below. Thank you.
Unseen for generations. A Dyad in the Force.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Dyad in the Force, episode 81. Now I realize that pre-roll was a little bit somber, but I promise we are here to have fun and talk about Star Wars. But if you are interested in contributing, the foundation with which we are fundraising for is pinned in the live chat. You can also visit the link in the description to contribute there. But we are joined by no, Hannah was here before, but we are joined by two newcomers to Dyad in the Force. Choco, what's going on? I'll let you do the introductions.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been fortunate enough to have all of them on high ground at different points in time. So love to see everyone. But yeah, why don't we go around and we'll have you all introduce yourself and where we can find your awesome content. And yeah, and see how you're doing. We'll start with Hammy Man.
What's going on, everybody? Elman, Choco, thank you for having me on, of course. My name is Hammy, or you could call me Drew, whatever, I don't care. You can find me on TikTok at HammyDman, and you can find my own podcast I do with a good friend of mine. It's on YouTube. It's at Wars in the Stars. Go check it out. It's awesome. We go live every Wednesday night, so come listen to us talk about Marvel and Star Wars. It's a great time, so yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate you. And how about you, Hayden?
So my name is Hayden. I am on TikTok at taika.ytd and on Twitter at mcuytd. I really don't have a podcast yet. No comment. Yeah, I mainly make Star Wars content about, well, recently it's been mostly comics because I, last summer, fell down a rabbit hole of Star Wars comics, and that is all I've been able to think about. They kind of filtered in with Kenobi because there was also that Obi-Wan Kenobi miniseries that started coming out, but yeah, I mostly make content about Star Wars comics, and then most recently like a little bit of Love and Thunder stuff, but that's probably gonna go away in like a week or two. But yeah, that's where you can find my stuff. And yeah, nice to be here.
Absolutely.
It's awesome to have you. I would love it if you started a podcast specifically geared towards the comics, because that's one area that we don't see a lot of people focus on. I know myself am a little lacking, although hashtag Balance Nation. Never forget, and also our queen and savior, Dr. Afra. Speaking of Afra, we also have Discount Bo-Katan, one of Afra's #1 fans. Tell us about yourself.
Yes, hello. Thank you guys so much, as always, for having me on. I am Hannah. I post on TikTok under the username Discount Bo-Katan. We have some laughs there about Star Wars, and we have some commentary about Star Wars, and we have some hot takes about Star Wars. So it's a lot of that. And there's been an increasing amount of Afra, and people have been bugging me to start posting about Galaxy of Heroes again. So I'm gonna get on that real soon.
Awesome. In terms of announcements, there's not much that we have to announce. Does anybody have anything to announce for themselves? Anything that they're working on? Any projects you want to plug? Hannah, any shows going on that you're in?
No, I mean I'm gearing up to direct my senior thesis. I'm a theater student in New York, and I'm gearing up to direct my my version of Taming of the Shrew. And
Fantastic.
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
Wow.
Now, I mean, are you going classic Taming of the Shrew, or are we doing a modern take? Doing
modern.
Hate About You?
Yeah, not quite that kind of modern take, but I'm going angle of this is not a comedy, and taking it towards the direction of this is real messed up, but playing a laugh track over it, and seeing what goes. I mean, I'm in super early stages right now. I haven't cast. I'm like cutting the script, but yeah, we shall see whether it works, because I have no idea.
I gotta say, you saying this is messed up, but there's a laugh track over it, just made me think of Big Bang Theory as a show. But
I was kind of thinking about. I was thinking WandaVision a little bit when I was thinking about it.
Interesting.
Choco, any announcements?
Yeah, we got the High Ground podcast this Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. We're going to be talking about the sequel trilogy and kind of the politics surrounding it. We've already gone through this with the original trilogy and with the prequel trilogy, and so we're gearing up for that. So it should be fun. Come join us. It will be the 100th episode, and yeah, on the High Ground.
Do me a favor and raise your gain a little bit. All right, so we have no announcements. Let's move on to the Star Wars fandom checkup. And before we move on to any kind of Kenobi action, I was contacted by Hayden Christensen, and I have to push back against it because
I don't want to hear any more about Obi-Wan.
But we're gonna talk about Obi-Wan. So, Hayden, and not Hayden Taika Waititi, but Hayden Christensen, we are gonna continue to talk about Obi-Wan. I put that in myself because we have been talking a storm around Obi-Wan and the finale all week across many different podcasts. So, with that said, whenever we're talking about Obi-Wan, the floor is it's yours. We want to hear what you thought about the finale, your favorite parts, and we are gonna just let you guys talk.
Okay.
But is there anything interesting happening in the fandom right now? I kind of changed.
Is there?
Is there? Spill.
Well, to me, the things that are interesting, I don't know if maybe we're not supposed to touch Obi-Wan yet. I don't know. But the things that are interesting happening in the fandom, as far as I am aware, are the people who switched up real quick about this show. Who were
I think I know exactly who you're thinking about.
I won't add anyone. But yeah, there were like a lot of very public complaints that were not giving the show half of a chance. It was like halfway into the arc and they were like, that's it? That's all you're gonna give us? It's like, obviously not. Please use your brain. Like, there's going to be 3 more episodes and they're each gonna be like an hour long and there's gonna be more content. Please relax. So it's been very interesting to see everyone switch up on it all of a sudden, being like, this is what I wanted. Like, okay. And, you know, you just spent all this time moaning about like how it wasn't what you wanted and you wouldn't be quiet about it. And now like you're acting like all smug and self-satisfied that you got what you wanted, as though those things go together at all. So I think the fandom's in a very interesting place with a lot of people. I guess they should be realizing that they need to work on their media literacy skills, but they're not. So that's my feelings on the state of the Star Wars fandom at that.
Well, that kind of leads me to a question. What do you think about the format with which Obi-Wan as a show was put out, being one single long story told in 6 parts, versus other shows that are episodic, right? They have strict episodes with their own arc that tell kind of an overarching story, versus this, like, even the names were part 1, part 2, part 3.
Right.
So what do you guys think of that format? Does that work? I think that contributed a lot, and I think a lot of people had trouble understanding the format.
I would agree.
Should they switch it up, or what do you think?
I think it really just depends on the type of show they're making. Like for The Mandalorian, it's very episodic, right? They have the overarching story, right, with, you know, Grogu and Din becoming the ruler of Mandalore, but it's very episodic in nature. Kenobi was always devised to be this long, 4.5 to 6 hour long film, essentially. And I can understand, like, the complaints. Like, I definitely didn't love the first 4 episodes, but I wasn't writing the show off. I mean, I prefer, like, the Mandalorian style of storytelling, but for Kenobi, like, this long format, especially the last third of the show, definitely worked. Definitely excelled, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I personally really liked how, for me, this might be sacrilegious, but I was never a really big, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi fan, but it's like, hey, it's Obi-Wan. Like, there's no reason not to dislike Obi-Wan, but I've just never been, like, the biggest fan of him. But I was actually in line at Disney World when they announced the Kenobi show, and then they announced that Ewan would be coming back as Obi-Wan, and I wasn't that into Star Wars back then, so I was like, oh, he's coming back, that's all fine and dandy. But like once I got back into the Star Wars fandom, like last summer, when I really started going like deep dive and rewatching all the movies, I was like, oh my gosh, he's coming back. And I think the format for this scale of story and like this kind of, I don't want to say kind of continuation of Obi-Wan's story that really like stopped in Revenge of the Sith and doesn't pick up until A New Hope, except of course for the books and comics. But to see this like on screen it's very well adapted for the format in which it was made. And as I said before, it's this really kind of like epic story that I don't really feel like would be better told as a movie. I saw someone today say that it would have been better as a 2-hour movie, and then it would have made $1 billion in the box office, as if that is the only thing that contributes to the success of the story. But I think that having very sequential, separated out episodes of this one longer story is just, in my opinion, what worked for the character of Obi-Wan and the scale of the story they were trying to tell.
And I think that, it's not like they didn't consider making it a movie. Like, it was originally slated to be a movie, was it not? Mm-hmm. Like, I think that was the original announcement, was like, it's an Obi-Wan movie. And then they changed it to a TV show, and I remember people being like conflicted about that. But clearly they thought it through. Like, is it better as a TV show or a movie? Personally, like, I trust, the industry professionals who have been doing this for 40 years to make that decision a little bit more than like some dudes on the internet. I think that they definitely did their due diligence about like, how can we best tell this story? You don't just like change your cash cow movie to a TV show on a streaming service without putting some thought into it.
Yeah.
And I also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go first.
I really like the word you chose, cash cow, because that kind of plays into one of my main gripes with the fandom's kind of receival or absorbance of the show itself, is that fandom recently has been so reliant on cameos and flashbacks and callbacks and everything. I don't want to come up with like a huge name for it, but I think what we're going through right now in this like phase of media is a nostalgia bomb. And of course nostalgia is great. Like, we all saw No Way Home. The Obi-Wan show had some great callbacks to the prequels, and I loved it. Like the Clone Wars flashbacks, or the Attack of the Clones flashback even. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I cried. I'm not afraid to say that. But there comes a time when we need to step away from nostalgia and still focus on the actual continuation of the story itself. And if we're so set on these flashbacks and these callbacks again, I hate repeating myself, but it just doesn't, it's not productive in the full scope of the story, and especially not with Obi-Wan, and in this context of such a short show. I'm not sure if that's coming across.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, it also
that.
goes hand in hand with, what Hannah mentioned about media literacy. There needs to exist a distinction between, the episodic format and the mini-series format, and that's largely due to the fact that everybody's just used to binging, and we've spoken about this before, and it has created this kind of weird zeitgeist around how people consume stories nowadays. But it's an interesting problem that needs to be solved, and I think we need more shows dropping episodically when it is befitting of the story. If the story, benefits from a paced storytelling format, and I think it largely benefited from this in terms of pacing.
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people had some like reactions to the finale saying, finally. And all I have to say is that is like saying it was the last place I looked. It's like, of course it's the last place you looked. Of course it's finally, because this was the end. This is what it's all been leading to.
It's like saying I watched all of Romeo and Juliet waiting for them to kill themselves, and finally at the end they did.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, duh.
it's if you took the movie Revenge of the Sith and divided it into 6 parts, that's what it was.
Right.
Yeah, you're gonna get a part where people are going to be sitting in rooms talking about it. Doesn't mean nothing's happening, but if you're there for the lightsaber battles, which by the way is fine, if that's what you love about Star Wars is the fights or whatever, that's fine. But if you understand this is the narrative, then you understand why it's not there, and you should at least not be I use the analogy of a child in the car saying, "Are we there yet?" every 5 seconds. We're getting there. You'll know when we are there. You will know. Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of how I felt this whole journey.
Yeah.
I also, while you were talking, Choco, it reminded me of a conversation about episode 4 and the collective popular use of the term filler, because a lot of people were using the term filler to describe episode 4, when, in my opinion, it was probably one of the episodes that really furthered the plot more than others, because Leia got freaking to the Fortress Inquisitorius and is about to be tortured by an Inquisitor, and you're complaining that Obi-Wan has to go and save her. I don't want to. I really
first
don't.
40 minutes of A New Hope are filler because they just have to go rescue Princess Leia.
that is another thing that I really don't want to be negative, but when I see the fandom using these terms that they've probably heard like once as a buzzword, and now we're just saying it over and over again without actually knowing what the word means, it just, I don't know, it kind of upsets me, because the show Obi-Wan as a whole was, in my opinion, it was probably one of the best Star Wars projects that's probably ever come out. I don't want to compare it to anything else, because this show is like probably since the prequels there's not really been any sort of project that's had like a scale like this, but I don't know.
It's not negative to call that stuff out. Like when someone's using the word plot hole wrong or retcon wrong, or just in general these narrative tools that they're just using it wrong, it's not negative at all.
Yeah,
and again,
was,
it goes,
As an anime fan, I know filler. Let me tell you,
Yes.
watching Goku get his driver's license is filler. Watching Naruto try and take off Kakashi's mask is filler. No, that actually had episode 4 had the most growth for Obi-Wan, reconnecting with the Force, and growing in himself. But what were you gonna say, Drew?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was like a big problem, I think, with the fandom during the show was people would say, "Oh, like this breaks canon," nothing in the show broke canon. It just changed your preconceived notions that you had about A New Hope or Revenge of the Sith. And in some ways, I'll view A New Hope in a more positive light, sure, but in some ways I'm like, I didn't love that. It doesn't break anything, but it does definitely change the way you'll view A New Hope. And in my opinion, I think it makes A New Hope a stronger film overall. Like when Leia says Ben Kenobi to Luke, when Luke rescues Leia on the Death Star, I'm like, oh, now I know that whole story and why Leia was so excited to see Ben. So those nice little details I like, but nothing in the show breaks canon. It just changes your preconceived notion that you had for a long time.
And it also goes back to what Hannah said about media literacy, because we as a society are sorely lacking in media literacy and critically thinking about media in this current kind of period of our lives, and it is detrimental to most conversations about pop culture and like shows about Obi-Wan, because I'm sure you guys know what I'm trying to say, but it's just sorely lacking, and it's very frustrating to, I don't want to say have a brain, but to use it and think about and connect the dots between 2 points.
Not to say CinemaSins ruined nerd culture, but CinemaSins ruined nerd culture. Like, this is what
I'm
saying, but
I mean, I hate to say it, but it is true. I mean, just like we've been talking about with the whole like story format and the pacing, a lot of those articles came out saying this breaks canon because you didn't have the whole story. Like when people thought that Quizzy was unalived, and they were like, "Wait, no, he's alive in Rebels," and I all I have to say to myself is like, "Yeah, he still is."
Yeah.
Which tells you what? That maybe he didn't die?
oh my gosh.
Thought.
Well,
Okay.
it's interesting. I mean, Star Wars just as a whole is moving forward, and I'm really happy about that. We definitely got to feel that at Celebration and with these projects. And there was, I mean, truthfully, there's a lot of content creators whose bread and butter, whose literal income is based off of negative responses to certain things. And for them to keep their audience, for them to keep doing this stuff, that will continue. But I'm sure you see a lot more people standing up against that and calling that stuff out as we move forward. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely getting better. And I can see us absolutely moving towards a more positive place. And yeah, I can't wait to get there with all of y'all.
Because
Yeah.
of
Happy to
Obi.
be here. I love these
Okay.
little interludes.
Let's move on to the finale, because I'm pretty sure y'all have a lot to say about this episode.
So, if I may ask one question before we get in there, I do, because you mentioned Quizzy, and I have to ask how excited Hannah is that Quizzy is coming to Galaxy of Heroes.
It's coming what?
The Grand Inquisitor to Galaxy of Heroes?
That's right. Yeah, I haven't been collecting the Inquisitorius squad the way that I should be. So I don't know how long it'll take for me to get him on my team. But I am very excited because I feel like this is a goofy way to think about it, but it's like when a character is added to Galaxy of Heroes, I feel like it legitimizes them in like the eyes of like the fandom a little bit. So it's really cool to like see the Inquisitorius. It's not like that's the Bible, but you know, it's like a sign of like, oh, this character has been deemed important enough to be like part of this thing. I know I'm assigning way too much importance to a mobile app, but like, you know, I think that it's
like
cool
knighthood.
that the Inquisitors are getting their due. I'm very happy for him, and I look forward to getting them all on my squad. But personally, I've been grinding Sith Empire at the moment, so I'm one thing at a time.
That's fair. Well, speaking of getting their due, Quizzy didn't get his due in the final episode, but what do you guys think about this this finale?
I mean, I think it was flawless. I mean, I don't really have a complaint at all. Pacing wise, like payoff. I mean, and I think it has, you know, one of the best lightsaber duels in Star Wars. I mean, just to see Vader move like that was crazy. Like, credit to everybody who was in the suit because it was just fantastic. The aesthetic. I mean, what they could do with the volume now. It's incredible. So, and it's only going to get better. So, I mean, just that whole fight was fantastic. And then obviously, the scene directly after the fight, one of the more emotional ones in Star Wars, especially if you're a big prequel fan. I know I definitely shed a tear or two, but yeah, fantastic. I mean, I love that whole fight, love that whole sequence.
Yeah, that choreography was crazy. I don't know, I made like a noise. I can't call it a squeal or a scream, but it was like a throat explosion out of my mouth. That something happened when Vader, like, I had to go back and rewatch it about 5 times before I figured out what exactly happened, but I was loving it every time. Vader, like, he was fighting with the lightsaber, and then he just rocked him in the face. He, like, punched Obi-Wan in the nose. And I was like, what just happened? Like, Vader using his fizz. Okay. We're going. Like, wow.
He's got robot hands. Why not?
Yeah.
What about you, Hayden?
So I'm on the East Coast right now. So I woke up at 3 a.m. to watch it. And then I promptly went back to sleep because I had work the next morning. But I am also one of those people that only likes to watch something once because they get too emotional and then they have to pause it and cry a lot and then they can't finish it. So from what I remember about the finale, of course I like went back and scrubbed through it just to remember like the major plot points. But I think my favorite, the one thing that is sticking with me, besides of course the whole Darth Vader and Obi-Wan fight, the thing that's sticking with me is I think Reva's kind of moment of atonement at the Lars homestead. And the one line that keeps coming back in my mind is, "Have I become him?" And that, I don't know what about that line is like stuck in my brain, but that, like, I'm sure I am also a big Fallen Order person. Like, Fallen Order is the thing that got me back into Star Wars. And the parallels, I saw other people talking about this, but the parallels between Trilla and Reva in that last scene when, spoilers for Fallen Order, Vader freaking strikes her down, and then Reva holding Luke in her arms because she couldn't do what Vader was going to do to her, what Vader did to her. I don't know, but something about that scene, that made me, I think it made me cry more than the confrontation between Obi-Wan and Vader after their fight. I don't know what it is about Reva, but she is such a complicated character, and I think the finale of her arc in that manner and how she realized she couldn't go through with killing Luke because she would become exactly, not to bring in a meme in it, but she would become exactly the thing that she sought to destroy. And I think that was a really good moment in the finale that I've talked about it a little bit, and I don't think it's being talked about enough, just because we've all heard about what's going on with Moses Ingram. And I know a lot of people are, of course, pushing back, which is absolutely amazing. And I think we need to talk more about these arcs, because I think this is in my memory at least, this is like the first time that we've really maybe got to see someone live to see the consequences of their own actions and begin to atone for them, except maybe for Ben Solo and Rise of Skywalker, but that's another conversation. But to be able to like live and see the consequences of your actions, and see see what would have happened to her, like when she saw the vision of her as Luke when Luke was passed out on the rock. Just I don't know where I'm going with this, but I loved that entire sequence of the Lars homestead, and for me that was probably the part that most stuck out, besides of course the Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fight.
I think part of it is probably the fact that she wasn't the main character, but she still received a huge arc. A lot of them did, actually. Like as small as they were, Roken had an arc, Tala had an arc, Leia had an arc, and so
Even as small as she was.
Lala. I mean, a part of me looks at that scene that you're talking about, Hayden, and thinks that it is a preface to Twin Sons, where she says, "Have I become him?" And then after the fight in Twin Sons, Maul asks, "Is he the chosen one?" And I think it mirrors each other in a lot of ways, how it's set up, and how Obi-Wan says, "We're both free now." And then by the time the Twin Sons comes around, he's like, "Look what I've risen above." It's a direct continuation. But what did you guys think of the fight?
The fight between Reva and the Larses, or the
You can talk about that too. I mean, I was referring to the rematch.
Okay. Yes. I mean, what can you say except for wow? It was great. It was everything that I love in a Star Wars fight scene, which is that it never felt like it was dragging. There was a clear story. There was I kind of like that rising action, falling action, climax, all that stuff just packed within the fight itself, because I'm a firm believer that a scene of fight choreography should tell a complete story, and develop the plot in a significant way. That's just something that I like in my fights. # throne room fight for women. I thought that it was really well done, and I really liked in the end when Obi-Wan was just pelting Vader with rocks, and he was just going, ah.
I do have to say, I did let out a chuckle.
I think we all did.
A mild inconvenience, but also stop it! Watch that. It was so funny.
It kind of reminded me of how he kind of peppers Luke in Empire Strikes Back with all the crates on Bespin.
Yeah.
And
yeah, he just keeps throwing them at him.
That scene made me chuckle too.
I always laugh when that happens too.
Yeah. Now, I can't say enough about it. After the fight, when they have their conversation, how the lightsabers will light up Anakin's face, when he goes from blue to red. And I also think it's one of the best acted scenes in all of Star Wars. Hayden, I mean, I can't say it enough. Hayden Christensen is so underappreciated as an actor. I know some of the dialogue in the prequels is not great, but he always gives it his all. He was just fantastic in that scene. How his voice changes from Anakin to Vader, and the lines of dialogue they choose when to change it. It's just so beautifully done. And then Ewan, obviously, once he starts crying, I'm gone. I'm gone. I'm full on tears at that point. So yeah, just like really well done. And the lightsaber fights, they've got him right with Vader. So yeah.
What did you guys think of the line? We had a big round table, and a lot of people had different interpretations of him saying,
I am not your failure.
I'm not your failure. And that basically that Vader is the one that killed Anakin. How did that line hit you guys, and how do you interpret it?
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I think that I'm not always a big Anakin fan. He's not my character. But I think that was something that was resonant and it was very much like, it had like I guess like a visceral center to it where it just had like a lot of relatable emotion in it, where it was like trying to feel yourself as an individual as opposed to constantly like relating yourself to all of like the mentors and the people in your life, especially when you feel as though you've let people down, but you've like grown as a person in the long run. Like in Anakin's mind, what he did is like essentially equivalent to the people who, I don't know, like let down their parents who are jerks who want them to be something that they just can't be. It's like, I'm not your failure. This is who I am. I did this for myself. You didn't do this to me. This is not your mistake. This is me as a person. And obviously, Anakin is in there, and he's gonna come back out of there or whatever. I get weird with like the terminology of the Anakin Vader, who's what, when. But I think that putting aside the fact that we know that his heart in the long run is not going to be truly in this, I think I really appreciated that it was in that moment, and that, villains who you can relate to and who have true purpose in their actions are always the ones that are the most interesting.
Absolutely. I'm going to add on top of that question too, and you can answer after Hayden, because I know you have something to say, but do you think that in saying I am not your failure, he is refusing to acknowledge this as a failure?
Ooh, I really like that question, because in Vader 2017, there was actually a lot of moments from the show that were inspired by parts of that story by Charles Soule, which if you're looking into getting into Star Wars comics, Vader 2017 is absolutely a must read. I can go into that later. But my friends run a comic panels bot where people can submit any sort of panels from the comics they read. It's been mostly Valance, I'll say, because we're all kind of in a Valance brain rot kind of mind. But I think it was yesterday or the day before, but there was a panel that the bot tweeted out of one of the visions from Vader 2017, where Vader is on his knees, kind of almost exactly like the setup of the show, and he's on his knees and he's almost begging Obi-Wan to kill him. And it's like that exact same kind of, you want to do it, but you can't. And it's the same, it's a reflection on both of them. And going back to your question, I'm not your failure. I don't think it's meant to be interpreted. It's not meant to be interpreted as a failure by Anakin, because I think because he was kind of corrupted by Sidious, like I am of the opinion that Vader was always kind of in Anakin from the start. He was just kind of like, he kind of reached his hand up every now and then to make an appearance or to foreshadow, a little Imperial March theme now and then. But as he was slowly more and more corrupted by Sidious, he kind of realized that he was, of course, tainted by Sidious, but it was also him realizing that he was a product of this prophecy that he had no control over. He was literally just born by the Force to a woman, as we saw in Queen's Hope, and he was slowly being I don't even know where I'm going with this, but what I wanted to say is that his failure, well, Obi-Wan's failure that he perceives is not how Anakin perceives his failure. He sees that as kind of a letting go almost, or like kind of like a fledgling thing where he was guiding him along, and then he kind of like let him spread his wings and fly. That I'm probably saying this really, really badly, but
okay.
but I think what I wanted to say is that Obi-Wan's failure in Anakin's eyes was not a failure. It was kind of a chance almost. And the chance he took to save Padme fully turned him into Darth Vader. Again, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down.
If I'm interpreting your words, it's kind of like he's always had this beast inside of him, and it was finally allowed to set free. He thought it could help him, it ended up hurting and taking over, but it was always there.
And that's actually hinted at in Vader 2017, now that you mentioned the comics, because I truly think that's what he believes, that's what he thinks, because in his mind palace, as I call it, he's going through scenes of all of the Jedi Council and killing them, and then he gets to a scene where he sees himself as the 9-year-old, but the shadow that's cast is Vader. So I think that's what he believes in himself, is that it's always been there for him.
I actually got that issue. Oh, sorry. I actually got that issue at Celebration, and I was flipping through it, and it's that like weird trippy dream sequence where he sees Padme, but she's like a Sithified Padme. I don't know. I really like that issue and that series as a whole. And if you're really interested in kind of seeing the progression from Vader at the very end of Revenge of the Sith to maybe like 10 BBY, maybe a year before Obi-Wan, I think it kind of takes place over those 10 years, if not maybe like a couple years, but it's still a very good kind of look at how he thinks now that he's Vader, now that he's completely kind of attuned to the Sith mindset, and how he goes about just being Vader, and how he looks at the world and how he perceives like his power in accordance with Sidious, of course, holding him on a leash, if we want to say that. But yeah, definitely if you're looking to get into comics, Vader 2017. And again, going back to that issue 25, that issue ends with Vader finally overcoming the Sith. Oh, spoilers for Vader 25. But it ends with him finally overcoming this Sith vision, freaking walking through lava and then going to sit down on his throne, and that's how the comic ends, if I remember correct. It's either on his throne or like outside Fortress Vader. And if that's not badass, I don't know what is. But yeah, I'll stop talking about the Vader comics now.
Well, no, I'm gonna throw in a Vader comic thing real quick. Is that another thing that I noticed was the scene in, what episode was it? 3, where Vader burns Obi-Wan, like in that recreation. Mustafar scene. Yeah. Vader fantasizes about doing exactly that in the comics.
I don't remember which issue it was, but once someone pointed out, I was like, oh my god, he has been fantasizing about this for years. Like, I remember when I finally saw it pointed out, I was like, wow. And I think I saw someone say this again earlier today, but this series has probably been the most connected to the extended media out of any other show. Like, first we had the High Republic reference in the episode with the Path. We had I was gonna bring a visual
and
aid.
The Arabesh.
And the Arabesh, yeah. And I was gonna bring a visual aid, but I thought I had the comic and I didn't. But Obi-Wan's outfit in the final episode was like a nod to Star Wars 2015 with like the white tunic.
Episode 7 or issue 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those. But it was like the backpack and then the goggles. And yeah, I really appreciate Deborah Cho for like reading the other media and really choosing really nice things that she can bring into live action that then both further the development of the characters as a whole and give us little nuggets. I am of the firm belief that introducing the Black Melons in Mandalorian Season 2 was a hint that there's going to be more stuff that are going to be brought in from the comics. And of course, we cannot forget Black Chrysanthemum in Book of Boba Fett and the outfit, of course. But I'm going on a whole rant about Star Wars comics.
And Afra in 3, college.
Yes, exactly.
Someone's help find the helm of Mandalore. Call your archaeologist.
I am also of the firm belief that we need more bounty hunters in the shows about bounty hunters. And is this a live action Valance plug? Maybe. However, I do feel. I hope so. I have my theories about Andor, but that's for an Andor episode. Anyways, there are a lot of stories from the comics that I think could lend a lot to live action. And I think choosing Vader 2017 as a very emotional and deeply rooted arc for Vader and bringing elements of that run into live action was a very smart move. And it really furthered Vader's development in a way that I don't think maybe any other media has ever done, besides Obi-Wan, of course. But yeah, that's my spiel. I think that's my second spiel about Vader 2017.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great connections, even to, like, you know, Rebels, obviously, where like Ahsoka cuts off the side of the mask, and then, you know, Kenobi, but the only one able to unmask Vader's obviously his son. And I love the line that Obi-Wan says, like, that my friend is truly dead. It echoes what Luke says in Return of the Jedi. So there's a lot of great, you know, little Easter eggs. You know, they definitely did their due diligence, and yeah.
And I also like that they weren't Easter eggs without function, or like without purpose. Like, they actually served a narrative purpose, and we're not just like, hey, look at this, we're referencing this other thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's proof of the pudding too, that like they know canon. And they would not be so sloppy enough to break it so easily. I mean, making the mistake of killing off a very prominent character in canon in a later timeline, it just seems like something an amateur would make. And you have to at least, like, you know, after you watch the episode, be like, they wouldn't do that. And if you believe it that they would, then you have to go home and rethink your life. You know?
It's watching too much Marvel if you think that's what's gonna happen, because you're in multiverse mindset. Like, there's alternate timelines. That's not Star Wars. Please let it never be Star Wars. That's my prayer. But like, I don't want to deal with all that. But let it be. Let Marvel be its thing, and let Star Wars be its thing, and learn to separate the warm wash from the cold wash.
Yeah.
Fully agreed.
All right, so we're gonna catch up with the chat really quickly, and then we're gonna get another question for you for the floor. B Dazzler says the best Cal Kestis reference I could have hoped for was, quote, "No one's that stupid to break into the Inquisitorius."
That did make me laugh.
We know that there's a bunch of people that break into there.
And there was how much extra security there was this time. It was a lot easier for Cal.
Yeah, Obi-Wan Kenobi says that the quote, "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. I saw it as the last sliver of Anakin setting Obi-Wan free of his guilt." Eric Carter took that as Vader taking that deed after from Obi-Wan, not giving Obi-Wan the credit. Like, nah, I did this. This is my creation. Right on.
Is it real? It's my creation. Sorry.
Which brings me to the next question, and Hammy, we'll start with you. What do you think is the symbolic significance of Obi-Wan switching to Qui-Gon's form after breaking free?
You know, this whole show really is about Obi-Wan trying to become hopeful again, right? Obviously in A New Hope, when we meet him, he's old, right? But like, he's still hopeful about the future, and you always wonder, like, why. It's like this random hermit dude in the desert who's watching over this kid. And Qui-Gon, to me, I've always interpreted like Qui-Gon as, like, you know, obviously the father figure to Obi-Wan, but also of the symbol of like what the Jedi should be. You know, like not caught up in the dogmatic ways and the beliefs of the Jedi Council at that time. So like Obi-Wan becoming a person like that has no, like almost no pressure on him, just becoming like the best of us, right? Just becoming like what his master was and what his master represented. And it was just beautiful to see. Like, you know, I think Qui-Gon just represents like, is like Qui-Gon, Kanan, like those type of figures obviously represent like what the Jedi should be. So yeah.
Absolutely. Hannah, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I love that they could have easily shrugged off Phantom Menace and been like, that didn't work, forget it all. But they keep bringing it back to the root of like, yeah, you know, Obi-Wan's emotional center in order to honor the character. And maybe they feel more able to do that because time's passed and people's opinion on that movie has dramatically shifted. But I think that it's really nice to you know, keep bringing it and keep being the story as a whole, as opposed to selecting the parts that are the most popular.
Absolutely.
I also want to say something about Obi-Wan switching to Qui-Gon's form. So I'll be honest, I have no idea what the 4 forms of lightsaber combat are. I like reading about canon, but stuff like that just escapes my mind. But I think the symbolic significance of Obi-Wan switching to Qui-Gon's form is, like we've said before, Qui-Gon is, in most of our opinions, like what the Jedi should be, as Hammy said, like not dogmatic, not relying on anyone else, but just listening to the Force. And I think Obi-Wan finally letting go of his old fighting style is really him embracing what the Jedi should be. And if you've read Master and Apprentice, I think we were bound to mention Master and Apprentice sometime during this episode, but especially now. In Master and Apprentice, we see that Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon do not get along. But at the end, they finally embrace their differences, and that's what makes them so good of a pair. And Obi-Wan finally releasing his old fighting style and embracing Qui-Gon's is, I think, Obi-Wan embracing that the Jedi aren't really gone. Like, I was gonna say that the Jedi are gone, but I realized that was completely wrong. But the Jedi still live, and they live through him. And he's embracing these kind of freer styles and freer interpretations of the Force because he finally believes in the future. Like, he tells Leia, you are the future. And him leaving behind his style that he was taught by the Jedi and instead adopting the style that was taught to him by Qui-Gon is, I think, really indicative of that, and is this kind of step in moving forward to where he is in A New Hope. And that's why he is, I don't want to say so different of a character, but more evolved of a character at the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show.
Yeah, I feel it really does feel like he is a lot more mindful of the living Force, which is what Qui-Gon was teaching him the entire time. And that's why I believe once he sees Qui-Gon and Qui-Gon tells him, I've always been here, you just weren't able to see me, he didn't have that same focus. You know, he had told Owen that you know, he's not worried about training Luke because when the time comes, he has that hope. He knows that the Force is going to bring them together in order to take care of that. And that's that belief in the living Force that Qui-Gon was always trying to teach him. So, yeah, him letting go of all of that stuff in the past and just, you know, keeping his mind on the present, doing what he needs to do. He switched up to Ataru, started doing some sweet behind the back moves. It was awesome.
Are you going to...
Sorry.
Just really quickly, Choco, are you going to yet again call attention to Ven Skywalker?
Wasn't planning to.
Go for it.
Well, when we were watching it, one of my favorite things was Ven Skywalker in the chat said that Obi-Wan went full-on unhinged space Jesus. And I believe that's accurate, you know.
So true.
let he who's without sin cast the first stone, and Obi-Wan just like,
I'll cast them all.
I'm just saying.
Several stones.
I made that up just now. I'm turning that into a meme. Pat saying.
Who had something to say?
Oh, I did. And I think I just realized this connection as you were talking, but the line of him telling Owen, like, it's okay if he's not trained, is a really interesting switch from in the first episode, him being like, when the time comes, he must be trained. But he was super adamant about it in the first episode, but after he kind of accepted that there is a more, I don't want to say like accepted a broader interpretation of the Force, but maybe accepted Qui-Gon's interpretation of the Force a little more, then he was able to kind of like chill out and be like, you know what? If he gets trained, cool. If he doesn't, oh well. But yeah, I just thought that was a really nice kind of, again, evolution of his character and how he went from like being adamant that he was going to be trained to, if he gets trained, so be it.
Yeah.
I kind of think of that as, you know, letting go of the Luke must be trained. Like, there's always Leia, if he goes through. He's got
Really quickly, I'm gonna try to increase the quality here for the call. Okay, so we are approaching the what appears to be the third act of this Dyad show. So I do want to get your guys' opinions and thoughts on Owen and Beru. What were your thoughts on them before this show? And then your thoughts on them
Man,
after.
they must have put up a good fight against those stormtroopers in A New Hope, huh? Always, you know, when you watch A New Hope before this, I'm like, they just got burned really quick, whatever. Now, like, I know, especially Beru, like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I loved it. Like, I was like, I never expected it, like, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru to have, you know, such a great story. I really appreciated that. That was a nice little add-on to this, you know, fantastic episode.
But at the same time, it makes sense for them to be like really, you know, I mean, they live in like the wilderness practically. They're rednecks, is what they are. And like, you know, I think it makes sense for them to have like their guns ablazing moment.
Well, just to tack on a little extra piece to this too, because your thoughts before and after, but also want to call specific attention to the line where Reva says, "You must love him like he's your own," and it's like he is my own. That hit me, but like factor in the family portion as well. If you have any thoughts on it.
Yeah, 100%. You know, like, I always like interpret it as just like, you know, Uncle Owen's just, you know, a deadbeat dad who just, he, you know, it's just his son. He's just another employee on the farm. So like, to see how much like Uncle Owen like cares about the kid, cares about Luke was a really nice add-on, really nice detail, and really, you know, opened up that world. And it definitely, we definitely now see Owen and Beru in a different light when they're introduced in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Hayden, I know you had something to say. You're repressing yourself or suppressing yourself.
I've been seeing memes all over Twitter and TikTok, but my favorite thing is just Beru with a Glock. Like she went off. I kind of liked Owen and Beru in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. Also, Owen has always been a DILF. Owen is a DILF from day one, but I think here he really solidified his. Oh no, I'm not even.
Dilfhood.
But
That sounds weird.
Dilfinity.
Yeah, but I think that him showing how much he cares for Luke is something we really don't get from any of the other movies. And I really appreciated that he was literally willing to fight an Inquisitor with basically a shotgun to protect Luke. And I really appreciated that, and Baru, because I think the only canon content we've gotten of Baru besides this show is Queen's Hope. I'm not positive. I think she was also in From a Certain Point of View. Again, not positive on that, but she was definitely in Queen's Hope. And I really appreciated how much she cared for Luke. And I just think they're awesome. And now I will definitely watch A New Hope with new eyes as I see their kind of skeletons, their crispy skeletons. And thinking about the fight that went into the result.
Because that's not a normal scene that you would see stormtroopers leave. So they were taking them down, and then they're like, all right, let's just go scorched earth, like literally.
Yeah.
No one else goes in. We just we'll just light it all up. But it also goes from, Owen being I don't want you to leave because I need your help here, to I don't want you to leave because you're so much like your father. I don't want you to get hurt. I think it's cool.
Brooke Dazzler on the chat says, "No, you're right, Hayden. You should say it." All I'm saying is him and Baru being hot and badass was truly a gift for Pride Month. Yeah.
Happy Pride.
Harith says, "Forget Obi-Wan. 2022 has truly been the year of Baru Lars." Yeah. I mean, see, this is the thing that Star Wars does, right? It kind of creates monoliths of characters that are either on screen for 10 seconds or just are in the background. And my favorite character, as always, is the character that walks in between Han and Leia in Empire Strikes Back. That guy has a story. And he's gay. So, happy Pride. We can't hear you anymore, Hannah. The microphone has failed. 1 second.
That.
Hey!
Oh, great. Awesome.
Okay, now repeat what you said.
Okay. Well, I mean, the last thing I said was I don't know what to do about that. I was shocked at this development that the guy who walks between them has a story at all, and also that he's gay. What?
Yeah.
I think he has a crush on Luke. My friend was reading The Empire Strikes Back from a Certain Point of View, and I think he has a crush on Luke. If I remember correct.
Several crushes exist, but he definitely has his eyes set on someone within the base. I don't want to spoil it because I know Hannah wants to read that. It is from Empire Strikes Back, from a Certain Point of View. It's called, is it called You Need a Kiss? It's based on what Han said to Leia during that.
You could use a good kiss.
You could use a good kiss.
Yeah.
It's called A Good Kiss. Okay. So definitely read that, Hannah. It's a great story.
Ooh.
But
okay.
But yeah, as I was saying, all of these characters that have seemingly no stories do in fact have stories, and I think there exists potential for Tala to get a comic or a book. Ned, Roken, all of these people. And then, of course, the biggest suspect, or the biggest candidate being Reva, going forth.
I was sure you were going to say Quinlan Voss.
The biggest desire for an additional story is Quinlan Voss, but from this show, the person with the biggest... Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So...
I was actually... Sorry.
What?
I was actually talking about this on Twitter a couple days ago, but there's a Fallen Order prequel comic that kind of goes into Eno Cordova and Seer Jinda's relationship before the events of Order 66. And I think if they brought back that exact writing team, or creative team, I should say, I forget who, I think his name is Rosenberg. I think it's Samuel Rosenberg and Paolo Villanelli, who I have a personal bias to Paolo Villanelli because he does the Bounty Hunters comics and I love his art style so much. But he does the Fallen Order, as I said, the miniseries before. But if they could come back and I think it would work better as an ongoing series rather than a mini series, but if they could do a series of some sort for Reva, I think that would be one of the best Star Wars comics that could come out of this kind of phase. And because there's also an Obi-Wan comic going on right now that he's kind of like going back in his life each issue, like a little bit lesser back. Like the first one was him at the academy, and I think the next one is going to be him and Qui-Gon, and then it's him in the Clone Wars, and then it's him maybe a couple years ago, because this is being told from the point of view of Obi-Wan like maybe a few days before A New Hope, so it's kind of going back sequentially and going back on all the stories. But if they could somehow interlace that story with the Obi-Wan comic, I feel like that would be maybe one of the best, not crossovers, but tie-ins that they could do. And yeah, this is me just plugging Paolo Villanelli again because I love his art and I'm obsessed with it.
Well,
they can even interlace Padawan.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. Another thing to keep your eye out is the book Padawan coming out. Also, we of course mentioned Master and Apprentice, but Claudia Gray also has a short story by the name Master and Apprentice in, from a certain point of view, A New Hope, and it's actually told from Qui-Gon's point of view as a Force ghost, pulling himself from the living Force to go talk to Obi-Wan right before A New Hope. If you haven't read that short story, I highly recommend it. But while we're on the subject of these short stories, I gotta ask, if you could greenlight a sequel to Obi-Wan, a prequel to Obi-Wan, or a spin-off, what would you do?
The sequel and prequel to Obi-Wan already exists. They're called Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope.
Got you there, Choco.
Well, I mean, that would exist for everything, though. I mean...
I think for me, I would love a continuation of this story with the Grand Inquisitor and the other Inquisitors hunted down Reva and the Path. I think that's the most obvious thing you could do. I'm not the biggest fan of a continuation of this story with Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think his story's been told, but a story with Reva and the Inquisitors hunting her down, and then sprinkle Vader in a little bit there, and I think that would be a really compelling show.
Quinlan Voss.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to say I completely agree that I am of the mindset that Obi-Wan doesn't need a second season, and we're gonna get into that later, and I can explain more why. I can explain why more later. I don't even know if that makes sense, but I also think that the Obi-Wan series does not need a prequel either, but I would like to see a spin-off, of course, of the Reva comic, but also of the Path. And I think that also goes into what Hammy said about like the Inquisitors and hunting them down, but I would also like to see like an Inquisitors comic, because most of the Inquisitors, a big chunk of their story again happens in Vader 2017, and it's all them just like being snide with each other and always trying to backhand each other, and I think it's really funny. In like a really dark humor kind of way, but I think those would be my two choices for either spin-offs or maybe prequels of those, and maybe like the formation of the Path and then the continuation of the Path, of course. But yeah, I don't think that Obi-Wan needs either a pre-story or a continuation of the story.
Yeah, I think the sentiment is kind of universal across the board. We don't need one, but we would watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only moment of reluctance that I have with the Inquisitorious spin-off of some kind is that it seems like it would be so similar. Basically, if we get that with the Inquisitors, we won't get it with the Knights of Ren. And any Kylo content I can get, I will take over anything. So so if it's a comic, no Knights of Ren comic. If it's a show, no Knights of Ren show. It's got to be one or the other. But choose wisely.
Sorry, I choked on my water because I am such a huge Ren fan. Oh my god.
Or also, we do the Inquisitorious as a workplace comedy.
God, I want a workplace comedy so bad. You don't understand.
Is it called The Fortress?
You start as someone applying for their first day. You have some stormtroopers that are walking around of just trying to not be murdered by the Inquisitors at all times.
You know what? I would say for that one, let's do the Knights of Ren, the workplace comedy, because like Adam Driver has already proven he can pull it off.
That's fair. That's fair.
Whatever Charles Soule is doing with the Knights of Ren right now in Crimson Reign, and now Ethan Sachs is bringing them into the Bounty Hunters range. Sorry, spoilers for Bounty Hunters 24, but the Knights of Ren are such an interesting group of people that I need like a spin-off of them. And I think maybe if one of them was like a fallen inquisitor, not necessarily Reba, but like another fallen inquisitor, I feel like that would be a really good story. But yeah, sorry, I'm a big Ren person.
I was hoping the Twi'lek one was.
I forgot what her name was.
But spoilers for.
Yeah, no comment.
Don't spoil the Crimson Reign 5 because I just bought it today. And I haven't read it.
No, I won't. Don't worry.
Where, Garza?
No, I don't think it was Garza. I think it's something with a B.
Yeah, it starts with a B.
It's like, is it Barza? Both them?
You're going down a path I can't follow.
Now I'm thinking of Bothaya, which is one of the Knights of Ren from Landscape with a Blur of Conquerors, which is a Rainbow fanfic that's getting turned into a book.
I think we can. You know what?
You have done that yourself.
Interludes, man, they're so funny.
Okay, so let's catch up with the chats. Julia Christine says, not universal for me. His arc with Anakin might be over, but there's so much more to Obi-Wan than that. And I would watch that season 2 for sure. I would definitely watch Master and Apprentice in live action. And you know, Star Wars 2015, fighting off some Tusken Raiders and getting in trouble with the Hutts. Lowrider says, I really want to learn more about the tomb at the bottom of Fortress Inquisitorius, which is a great idea for a spin-off where it's not all about the tomb. I'm just saying, like, the spin-off is about the Inquisitors, like Choco said. It's about Riva and the path, and then they shed some light on the people in the tomb, and they might even run into some more Jedi that is entombed during that show.
I can't decide whether I want them to be like the same thing that Luminara's remains for in Rebels, or if I want it to be like the Palpatine cloning situation. Like I can't decide. I think probably the cloning stuff, because the more Snoke context we get, I feel the better, and I think that they've been gearing up toward that. But like, how interesting would it be if they take like this one little spin-off plot from Rebels and are like, this is something we've been doing and we've been killing Jedi doing it for like a while. Like, I don't know.
I don't see why it couldn't be both. I mean, apparently it was a echo of her in the Force still, and that's essentially what he's trying to harvest, I believe. You know, maybe toss a little Jurassic Park in there where he takes the amber and has to like drill into it to grab a little nugget. It's all good. It's all good. I was just talking about how I imagine the story you pitched being an anthology, but every story ends with Order 66.
Where I'm guessing Hannah is AFK.
Ran to the restroom.
Okay. So I was going to read a question by Lowrider before was anybody in mid-thought? Okay.
I made a Terra Sinube joke, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't get into this, probably. That's
You want to make it again?
I mean, it's fine. It's just, Choco said something about, like, drill into the amber, get the dinosaur DNA, and I said, by dinosaur you must mean Terra Sinube. It's not even funny. I just
wanted to shine a light on it, that's all.
Yeah.
Especially since it's not funny. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Lowrider asks, I wonder if Mace Windu is in the tomb, and I think Choco addressed that earlier. He probably was.
If he is, he's just a big gelatinous brown and red blob.
Yes. Choco sad emotes for my internet connection. We're back finally. Everyone's putting in the buffering emote, which is understandable. Oh, Harith did the Choco sad. Okay. So we are running out of time in this episode, so let's shift over to the final piece of this episode. Qui-Gon showing up at the very end and saying, "I've always been here, Obi-Wan." How did you guys feel? Was there tears? Was there joy? Some people left, like Char.
It felt resolved. It felt complete. It felt like we've closed. We had the book of Boba Fett. No, the book of Obi-Wan Kenobi open, and now it's shut. You know, like a nice conclusion.
Yeah, it was really nice to see. I love how his first line is like one of the most snarkiest things you could say. It was pretty funny. But it was great to see Liam Neeson back. So it was really well done. I was like, it's the cherry on top. That's the best way to put it, I think. So.
Yeah.
I've never really been a big Qui-Gon person, but my friend Ari is, and the second he came on screen, I was like, I need to do a wellness check on her. But I think the thing that excited me most about seeing him on screen was there's little portions of the Legends Kenobi book where Obi-Wan is kind of like sitting in his... There we go.
So sorry. Looks like I'm ordering that new router tonight.
You have one of mine. I have 3 in my apartment right now. I've been dealing with Spectrum for weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think after a couple of rounds of troubleshooting, it wasn't necessarily my internet to begin with, but it was like this router that just could not handle the business, throwing a lot of things at it. But Hayden, you were in mid-thought. Choco sat in the chat.
What was I talking about? Oh, I was talking about the messages to Qui-Gon through the Force, and I think it would be really cool if there is like, if we do get some sort of mention to it in the Obi-Wan comic series coming out right now. It would be a cool callback to as I said, the Kenobi book. But yeah, overall, Qui-Gon, he's pretty cool. And again, I did need to perform a wellness check on Ari, because I know you guys went to, I don't know if you went to Celebration Hammy, but she was going around with stickers. I don't know if I have mine, but she was going around with stickers that said Qui-Gon but not forgotten.
Yes, I have that on my
you do?
laptop bag. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to tell her about that. But yeah, seeing Qui-Gon was pretty cool, and I think it was really the final, I don't want to say the final chapter, but like the final moment that let me know that Obi-Wan's arc was complete in this self-contained story. And it was a nice way to move along while referencing the past that doesn't entirely rely on the past itself. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Qui-Gon.
Yeah, shout out really quick to Ari in Space and her podcast, The Millennium Pod. So,
yeah. Also, shout out to this right here. There are more of us. I have a whole bunch of stickers from everyone on my laptop bag. It's a smorgasbord of just a whole bunch of creations. It's amazing. So we are approaching the end of this show. Do you guys have any final thoughts on Obi-Wan Kenobi finale? Any parts that we missed that you guys want to talk about?
Little Leia as a whole.
That's right.
I
knew I was gonna say something.
I mean, that actress is incredible. She's blowing my mind. She's gonna be huge. I hope that they keep her on playing Leia in various stages of her life, because I want more. Great, good stuff, good soup. Loved it very much. Moses Ingram in this finale, acting her butt off, and oh my god, that was. I think that was the moment that like went the absolute hardest for me of this, entire finale emotionally. It was her breakdown, because the acting was on point, and anyone who ever said otherwise is kind of insane. Because like that's what it's all about. So my girl's killed.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've been saying this all week now on multiple podcasts about this finale is that the thing with Leia, her arc, and the lesson that her arc imparts by way of her acceptance with the Organa family brought the Rise of Skywalker up from, you know, a couple spots, and it really kind of recontextualizes Leia's instant connection with Rey, also knowing that she knew the entire time Rey's situation. So you kind of, I'm kind of like I'm like looking at that stuff again and reevaluating how it makes me feel. And I just love that Leia's story and the Obi-Wan Kenobi show can do something for the sequels too. But other final thoughts, any spots that we missed, or if you have any additional thoughts on Leia?
Yeah.
I do want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, I think the best part of the show as a whole was Obi-Wan and Leia's relationship consistently throughout. That was the best part of the show, and Vivian Blair, I believe, is her name. So I hope to see more of her as Leia and just in general because she was fantastic throughout. So
awesome. Peyton?
Picking up on the Leia thing, unfortunately, there was a scoop that was released last year when I really didn't care about the Kenobi show at all that said that Leia would be in it. And I was like, that doesn't make sense. Why would she be in it? She was in it. That also goes into another conversation that we don't have time to have about scoops and things in general. But Leia in this series was absolutely adorable. I also want to bring up Princess Leia 2015, the miniseries by, I think it's Mark Waid. It also goes into a little bit about Leia growing up and not necessarily wanting to be in the Senate. And I think if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think after, I haven't read Leia Princess of Alderaan yet, unfortunately, but I think after kind of this instance and finding out maybe with the path, this is maybe Leia finding out that she wants to help people, and that maybe kind of drives her to be a little more inclined to the Junior Senate and getting involved with interplanetary politics. And I think Leia as a whole is just, in this show, is just adorable. But I will say, when Leia's theme finally played, when Obi-Wan was talking to her, tears. And yeah, the actress is absolutely adorable. Her and Jimmy Smits on stage at Celebration, adorable. But yeah, I loved little Leia. She was everything. She was iconic, and she did a great job.
Absolutely. And she was perfect too. I don't know if you said it, but
yeah.
It's just
she was perfect.
The delivery in the lines, the look of her, just the way she physically acted, just reminded me so much of Carrie Fisher.
And one of the things that always bugged me in A New Hope was we have that moment where Leia is comforting Luke after having her entire planet destroyed, and you're like, you know, like, you called for Obi-Wan and he died, and now Luke is the one and you're consoling him. But we saw that in moments of crisis, that's what she does. She takes care of the others, and like that echoes forward. It's beautiful. She killed it. I hope to see her more.
Yeah. And Lowrider says, I was hoping Obi-Wan would tell Leia, Anakin, and Padme's names, but I think that would actually break canon because they don't know their names. Leia doesn't either. I think the only thing she remembers was that, you know, she was pretty, that Padme was pretty, right? Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
Pretty and sad. That sums it up. That does sum it up. I feel like she doesn't have to just have a little Force vision. That's everything you get out of watching Revenge of the Sith.
There you go.
Oh, I'm back.
You are. Let's see here. Brooke Dazzler says Carrie would be so proud of her. Ven says Carrie would have adopted her. And Ace says, bunch of idiots talking about Kenobi, laughing my ass off, especially that idiot Hayden. That's a joke. Obi-Wan Kenobi says the Leia theme playing while Obi-Wan told her about her parents. Yeah, and I think Choco pointed out that it had some sprinkles of Across the Stars in the beginning of it, which is awesome. But yeah, it seems like we're out of time. Do you guys have any final thoughts going forward on the finale?
I thought it was some of the best. I mean, not just the finale, but the whole show. Like, as you know, a little bit of a retrospective, it gave everything that needed to be given, and I think it gave it in due time. And I think, you know, the finale especially really delivered, and I don't think that it was a standout from the rest of the show. I think that the quality was, for me, consistent and consistently great. And you know, while by virtue of being the climax, it's gonna kind of be a standout for sure. I think that it was not a dramatic difference in like how interesting it was, or like what the quality was, the way that, you know, some other shows have been. So I really dug it, and I hope that people like stop writing things off right away going forward, you know, based on like this experience. I hope that they learn and they grow and they remember, hey, Kenobi finale was pretty good. Maybe that's sometimes how stories work, is you have to wait till the end to get the payoff.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, it was a fun ride. It's definitely worth it, I think. One of the more anticipated projects in recent memory, and I think it lived up to its billing. And it's great to see Ewan and Hayden back, and great to get a bunch of new characters, Roken, Haja, you know, little Leia. I mean, they were all great. So it's just a fun, nice little story, and I would like Star Wars to get out of this time period, you know, between episode 3 and 4, but you know, yeah, fantastic.
Okay. Choco, any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
I'm just happy to be able to talk about this with all y'all. This has been a great week. This has been like podcast number 6 for me.
Yeah.
Although the first one technically wasn't about Obi-Wan, but they've all been fun hearing everyone's thoughts. So yeah, I appreciate you all.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
I think Kenobi was not my most anticipated project, but it was one of the most, I'm forgetting the word I used for it, but it's one of the most grand projects that Lucasfilm has done in a very, very long time, and it definitely lived up to the scale, and it delivered exactly what it promised. It delivered Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I think one more thing that I want to say without being too negative is that people are saying that this show was billed as the Obi-Wan and Vader cat and mouse game, but it really wasn't. When we go back and we look at the promo and we look at the story as a whole, it's about Obi-Wan, and his central arc in this miniseries was fulfilled, and it was one of the most, I think, interesting arcs in recent Star Wars history. And I think it was perfectly executed. I think it worked great for a 6 episode miniseries format. And going back to what I said earlier, in my opinion, it really doesn't need a second season because that arc was so fulfilled, and he came so far from how he was in the beginning to where he was at the end with Qui-Gon. And I just feel that this series was incredible. Like the quality of the show itself, the arcs, the characters, the actors, just everything was top notch, and it was everything I could have asked it to be and more.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you guys so much. Thank you, Hammy D-Man. Thank you, Hayden. And thank you, Hannah, for joining us on this episode of Dyad in the Force. Your insights were amazing, and we had a ton of fun. I hope you guys had fun as well. Let's start with Hammy D-Man. If you want to plug anything, your socials, and where people can find you.
Yeah, sure. You can find my Star Wars and Marvel stuff on my TikTok at HammyDman. You can find out my podcast on YouTube at Wars in the Stars. And if you want to follow my personal stuff, Instagram at HammyDman and Twitter at HammyDman. So yeah.
I'm sorry, is it Hammy Demand? Have I been saying Hammy D-Man like...
No, well, you can say it. It doesn't matter. I don't really care. So
Okay.
I
It's
don't care.
just last name and first name. There.
Hayden.
So I I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. My TikTok is at taika.ytd. Is it? Yeah, it's on the little screen right there. And then my Twitter, which I'm more active on nowadays just because I have work and I have school, is MCUYTD. Again, the last name is in the little, where is it? The little badge right there. If you don't know how to spell Taika Waititi's name. But yeah, I don't have anything else to plug yet. But hopefully there's something coming soon. I don't know.
Awesome. And it sounds like someone needs to switch to the underscore. We'll see what happens.
No.
Hannah.
Yes, you can find me on TikTok at Discount Bo-Katan. We have some fun there. We do Afro posting, we do discourse posting, we do more queer characters posting as of late, given the month that it is. And yeah, we have a good time. So I hope to see you over there at TikTok Discount Bo-Katan.
Awesome. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining us, people in the chat. Thank you to Squadron 7. Or not Squadron 7. Dyad Squadron. That's what it's called. Without your guys' support, we could not do this weekly, so thank you so much for your support. But I believe that is the end. On to the next one.
For Light and for Life.
We're all the Republic.
And may the Force be with you. Balance Nation.